Well, hi there, brothers and sisters. My name is Adriana, and this is the In His Will podcast. Today, I just wanted to give some beautiful tips on how you can distinguish when God wants you to disconnect from someone. Now, of course, this is taken from my personal experience. But if you're feeling led to listen, or if you know someone that may be having some trouble in this area, definitely just, share this podcast with them. I pray that you're having a beautiful day, and I am wishing you all the love and peace and blessings in your life. So, the first tip is that there is some sort of constant dysfunction, chaos, drama. Now, as a Christian, the ultimate goal is for us to have eternal peace. And thou shalt have peace on earth as it is in heaven. So, the biggest thing is when you are in relations with someone, whether if it's a friend, a co-worker, a family member, marriage is different, right? But on the lines of just having a relationship of that sort, if you are constantly having some sort of like drama with somebody or people, there is dysfunction when you come around. The energy is very chaotic. You tend not to be yourself. You are out of character. This is when it is best to disconnect from somebody. You can only control yourself, and by you walking away, dismissing yourself from drama, you bring peace in your life. The second tip that I personally realized is that, like I said before, kind of said this in the previous tip, but you are not yourself. So if you start to realize that your character changes while you are around them, maybe it's best for you to separate. I know for me personally, when I started walking my journey with Christ, um, there were people that were still listening to secular music and were cussing and stuff, and it actually disturbed my peace. It disturbed my spirit, so I had to separate from myself. I had to separate myself from those people because of the simple fact it was not of God. It was not holiness, and we cannot serve two masters. So I can't sit here and say that I'm a Christian, but I'm still listening to Chris Brown, and I'm listening to somebody saying this word and that word. It is very much disrespectful to Jesus. So if it is not satisfying to him, why would I allow that? Now, another thing you could go about doing it is, of course, express your boundaries to people. If you know you're the type of person that does not like for people to cuss around you, or you're not the type to listen to secular music, you can state your boundaries. You don't have to just completely walk away from somebody because they do that, but it is very important once you state your boundaries and then somebody still go against your boundaries, that tells you everything that you need to know about their character and how they feel about you. So I love to give this example with my grandmother. This is when I was in the world, and but it still was a level of respect for my grandmother when she was living. So we knew the family members. If grandma is in the car, we're at her house, she's at our house, that secular music, it ain't no such thing. We're gonna put on some gospel music, okay? All that cursing, hollering going on, no. You're gonna act like you got some sense. So I always look at it as, once you give your boundaries and people have a respect of that, then they will follow suit. And if not, then you know what you need to do moving forward. You have to separate yourself from what does not feel right in your spirit, right? Because if you allow these things, then quite frankly, that is lukewarm behavior. Another tip is doubts. Oh, this is a big one, guys. Doubts, confusion, doubting the relationship. If you have some type of connection and in the back of your mind, right, in the back of your throat, it just don't feel right. It don't sit right. And if you're like, I don't know if I should be with this person, for one, and when I mean be with this person, I'm not talking about in a relationship or partner or nothing like that. I'm talking about as far as like friends, like I said, family members, co-workers. Now, because me personally, I don't believe in having relationships with a significant other partner. I don't believe in all that. I'm definitely old school, so I definitely believe in the importance of friendship, courtship, marriage, right? But all this dating thing, that's just something that's a whole different conversation, but it's just something that I quite frankly do not believe in. But in other words, of course it is very important to give it to God, to pray about your doubts. Something that is disturbing you, right? If you're having this intuitive feeling about somebody, always pray, right? Jesus will never steer you in the wrong direction. So once you give it to him, he will give you the answer that you need. You just have to listen. Now, our God, our Heavenly Father, right, is not a God of confusion. So that is the biggest red flag. Nothing that is sent from God will give you a confused mindset. It actually will give you very much peace, right? It will feel right. It's not something that you'll have to be like, I don't know about this. I don't know. It just don't work that way. Another one is no respect, no boundaries, which I've already talked about. But I would give an example of how I knew somebody was not for me and I had to separate myself from them. Now, of course, I still love this person, but I love them from a distance. And instead of just bringing them into my life and having them around me, I choose to maneuver, right? But that doesn't mean that I have to stop loving this person. That doesn't mean I have to stop praying for this person. It just means that I have to disassociate myself from how I used to have conversations with this person or share my life, right? Because that's a big red flag if somebody is overstepping your boundaries. They have no respect for you. Now, I would give the example with somebody who I haven't talked to in months now. Now, I was in this relationship. This is when I was in the world. This is what the world calls, right, relationships, once you're dating and things of that nature. And this individual was calling me names. They told me to shut up. And at the time, I was carrying. And they pretty much verbally abused me. And at this time, I still was forcing the relationship because I was looking out for my son. I definitely wasn't too much of a care of myself. I was just more focused, worried about my son. But that relationship was very unhealthy. And I knew deep down that I needed to disconnect from that individual, but I didn't listen because we created a child together and I wanted it to work very badly, regardless of how he treated me which a lot of women suffer from, the trauma bonding. And it was very unhealthy, like I said. And so I had to learn. That if I don't respect myself, how can this individual ever think to respect me? If I don't set boundaries, how does this individual know not to comply with my boundaries? But towards the end, before the disconnection, before I gathered the strength to just step away completely, I did state my boundaries. Hey, you're not going to talk to me like this. I deserve better, this, that, and the third. But like I said, I was called stupid. My son was called weak. There were a lot of just abuse with words, and physical, but mainly verbal. It was very manipulative, and no respect at all for me nor our child. So from somebody who has experienced being with someone that clearly didn't respect, the child, their partner, whatever you want to call it. But if you are with somebody, somebody who's with someone who has experienced any form of abuse, any form of manipulation, boundaries are stated, there's no respect. And once those boundaries are stated and that person is still overstepping those boundaries, they're trying to bend those boundaries, step away, walk away. God can handle it better than you can. You can't control what other people say. You can't control what other people do. The best thing for you to do is to protect yourself, protect your peace. Leave it to Jesus, and He will take care of the rest of your needs, because that was the best decision that I could ever make when it comes down to disconnecting from someone. Now, I had a very, very, very bad problem when in my past I would actually ghost people. So I had a bad habit of doing that, and it wasn't in to be negative or anything like that. It was just more of, okay, I haven't spoken to you for some time. I've changed my number and I'm not looking back. And I believe those were by me doing that, it were some valuable friendships, co-workers that I could have still been in contact to this day. But I do believe in other terms that, I'm grateful for all of that, because I can tell somebody else, not to do that, because I truly believe, or am a true believer, that when things are for you, it will be for you. When God put people in your life and they're meant to be in your life, you guys will navigate back together, because a lot of things is outside of our control. Everything is outside of our control. Even though God does give us free will, but there are a lot of things where if it's in His plans, it's in His will, it's going to happen, That's why it's not really good to try to force relationships, because when it's meant to be, it will be. Like, for example, you can see somebody at Walmart, right? And then the next day, you see them at a fast food restaurant, just for example. And then the next week, you see them at church or something like that. That's a rhythm. That's not a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences anyway, but that's not a coincidence that you just ran into this person. It's not a coincidence if you see this person, right, that works in the same building as you, and you guys are really great friends, and then right behind you, this person is in the same line as you to watch a movie, right? That's a confirmation for a connection or something like that. And it doesn't have to be on an intimate level. It could be somebody that you could just be great friends with, or somebody that may be in a need. You may need something, and this person just can give. You just never know how God works, right? What he will place or who he will place in your life, but he will always provide. So yes, there's no respect. There's no boundaries, or you stated boundaries and those boundaries get overstepped. Yes, it's time to say goodbye. It's time to walk away. Now, these are some key things to keep in mind when it comes down to having a friendship, a relationship with a coworker, family member. A strong relationship with anyone should stand on solid foundation with Christ. This is very important. This is something that I have recently came to understand on why a lot of things did not work in my life when it comes down to connections, because I was fulfilling my flesh. I wanted the earthly desire to have a lot of people in my life, which caused a lot of chaos, caused a lot of dysfunction and drama. And I had to realize that if we do not have a connection with Christ within our relationship, then it's not going to be solid. There's going to be some faulty flooring, right? There's going to be some lightning issues, some electrical problems. Like I'm speaking of a temple, right? Because anything that is of Christ is solid. I don't know what other word to say, but it's solid. It's a foundation. It is sturdy. It is stable. It is peaceful. Anything outside of that, if I'm trying to make this hay house stand in the wind, right? Like the Three Little Pigs story, God is going to blow it down. It's not going to withhold anything. But with Christ, he's going to solidify boundaries. He is going to solidify that connection. There's going to be understanding. So once you communicate, there's going to be honesty, truth, because Christ is the truth and the way of life. So I am a firm believer that if you take even your problems that you may have, you're going to pray together, you're going to pray individual, but it's not going to be something that just dissolves over petty arguments or disagreements. There's going to be an understanding. It's going to be very much maturity within the relationship, right? So I would say that if you or somebody you know struggling with building or having a relationship with somebody, these tips has helped me so far. And these are something that I will tell my younger self, so don't wait until later to try to find out the hard way like I did. Definitely learn the word, gain discernment, and Jesus will show you the way. Another thing to keep in mind before I let you guys go: a true courtship starts with friendship. This is something that God actually talked to me about because I was struggling with this. Now, I came from, like I said in my previous episode, I came from a background of abandonment, and I searched for connections outside of the home. And I suffered from people pleasing. So I always wanted a whole bunch of people to be around me, to like me, and I always had a boyfriend, right? It was not 1 year that I wasn't with somebody. And the birth of my son changed my life. And one thing, when I gave my life to God, I definitely heard him tell me that if I truly desire marriage, if I truly desire to have connections with people, whether if it's anybody, it has to start with purity. It has to start with the connection of friendship. But we're talking about courtship, so I'm going to leave the family and coworkers to the side, but mainly with courting somebody that is built on a solid foundation with Christ, and we're starting off as friends. So that's why I always say, if somebody wants to pursue me, they have to have a relationship with God. They have to be a believer of Christ, because I won't have it no other way. That is my number one boundary, and that's not something that I would ever ban for anybody. But take it from somebody that wish they would have known better. Start your courtship with friendship. You do not need to put a timeline on anything, right? I grew up thinking, like most people my age, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids. Once you get older and you realize you're a certain age and you still have not gotten married, you still haven't had kids, there's a level of doubt, all right? There's a level of guilt and shame upon yourself. You're like, oh my gosh, like, what's wrong with me? Why haven't, instead of waiting on the Lord, because he will provide. And a lot of people, like myself at the time, didn't understand that Jesus himself wasn't even married. The Son of God was never married. Sometimes that's in the plan for some of us. That is the truth. Some of us will not experience marriage. Some of us will experience a solo dolo relationship, being independent, but having a dependable relationship with God, and that's all that we need. Like I tell people, Jesus is my husband. He will forever be my husband. And if it is in his will, right, if it is in God's will, then I will be gifted and husband. But if not, I definitely understand that's not something that I will fist my mouth and complain about, because for one, I did it my way for so long, and it brought me to a place of brokenness. It did not serve the purpose of God. Those relationships that I tried to have, and I was in relationships, it started from 2 years, 2.5 years, 4 years, 5 years. And I would tell myself, right, oh, this is him. This is my man. This is my husband. This is somebody I'm going to marry. And then God, like, no, ma'am. Who told you that? Did I tell you that? Did I give you confirmation that this is your man? This is a man sent from me? What changed my life was when the devil sent me my last relationship. When the devil sent me that person, that's why I'm like, I give so much thanks to God, because the devil literally had me. Like, he literally tried to take me out. But like I said in my last video, Jesus did not take his hand off of me. He didn't. Because what I experienced was life-threatening. It was very much pain and hurt. Dysfunction, chaos, and drama. But I decided, when God took me out of that, I would never return back to any type of association with that. Because once God delivers you from your own iniquities, you better not turn around and do it again. You better not. Because then, not only are you being disobedient to your own self, your boundaries, but most importantly, you being disobedient in God. You're telling God what you're going to do. And you're telling God that your flesh, the world, is more important than he is. And take it from somebody who gave their life to God before, then went back to the world. And now I'm here telling my testimonies because it's a part of my purpose. But for somebody who experienced and didn't necessarily have to, for real, don't you do it. When he brings you out of that abusive relationship, when he brings you out of that dysfunction, family connection, when he brings you out of that drama with that best friend or friend that you had, since childhood, when he brings you out of those connections that no longer serves him, that doesn't serve you, don't go back. So that would be my last message. Once you leave, you keep going. Because if it's meant for that person to be in your life, God will make it so. There has been times where God has brought somebody out, right? Somebody, for instance, you have given your life to God. And then the best friend that you've known since childhood has given their life to God. And in some way, somehow, you guys come back into connection. It takes God to come in and step in. Right? When you walk away, stay away. But if it's meant for that connection to follow through, then God will make a way, because he loves his people. Right? But don't be devastated because somebody is no longer there. Because they are man. And you don't make man God. The only person you need is Jesus. Because that is the only way that you can get to God in the first place. But other than that, Jesus is our comforter. So he will genuinely make all of your pain and stress go away. But I really hope this helps somebody. Thank you for listening to episode 2 of season 1 of In His Will podcast. I love you. Take care. Have a blessed one.